Reggie here, and I want to welcome you to another one of my videos. Recently, I released a video here on the channel in which I highlighted a couple of books that I would absolutely not touch right now. And I explained over the course of that video my rationale behind why I would not purchase those books. But in this video, we're going to talk about 3 awesome books that people may want to consider snagging. And like the last video, I will explain my rationale and my thought process behind why I think that these could be good books to pick up. The important thing here is that you should never substitute my judgment for your own. You have to listen to what I'm saying. You have to evaluate it for yourself and decide whether these are the types of books that you want in your collection. And I think potentially as you hear my logic and my methodology for these books, you may be able to leverage that for your own situation as you look at books that you personally are thinking about picking up. With that said, the very first book that I want to look at is this one right here, Submariner issue number 1, a book that I personally love. I am a huge fan of the Submariner, and so I think that this is a really great book for people to look at. A lot of folks were priced out when it came to this book because of Namor appearing in the Black Panther movie. Because of what was happening in the market overall. There was a lot of people coming into the market. The prices were crazy. The economy is in a slightly different place now, and the movie is in the rearview mirror. And as a result, generally speaking, as you start to look at how this book is performing, you can see that values are coming down, especially if you look at the 1 year compared to the 30-day averages. You can see that generally values are coming down, maybe with some exceptions, one of which we're going to talk about. But again, prices generally are declining as you go from the 1 year to the 90-day to the 30-day average. The very first grade that I want to look at here is actually the 9.2. This is a pretty high grade for this book, and there have been some sales within the last 30 days. There are also 246 copies of this on the census. So I want to go ahead and take a look at this one ever so quickly. And what you see here, just immediately, just looking at the graph, you can see a big fall off in the value of this book. And the average in January of 2023 was around $1,250, right? $1,250 was basically the average that was seen in January. And if you back up, you can see in November at the end of 2022, the book was $1,500. You back up a little bit more to September 2022, this 9.2 was going for $2,600. So there's definitely been a fall off in the value. What was the high watermark? High watermark for this book was around $3,000 even in January of 2022. So 1 year ago, this book's average price was $3,000 compared to where it is right now at $1,200, which again is not a terrible price for such a high grade. The most recent sale was I will tell you, with this book, I tried to look this one up. This is one of those best offers. Somebody offered it up for $1,200. The book did not go for $1,200, but I was not able to find what the actual sale for this book happened to be. There is the potential that the average is a little bit lower if this book didn't sell, or if it sold for less than that $1,200 mark there. That would not necessarily be factored in here. So I'm going to keep my eye on that one. But again, $1,200 is not a bad price for a 9.2 of a really, really awesome book. So let's back up here. Let me shrink this down so I can get my bearings. There we go. We're going to back up a little bit. I want to look at another grade here. Let's look at the 8.5 ever so briefly. And you can see here that based upon the data, the 90-day for this book was averaging around $800. And it appears that it is ticked up to around $850 at the 30-day average. So let's drill into this one and look at it. And you can see, again, same type of thing here with the value of this one. The high watermark for this book was basically $1,900 back in 2021, started to cool off, and then dropped to a low in December of last year of $775 on average, and appears to have blipped back up, right? Blipped back up to about $850. Now, what's really interesting is that I went and I looked at these last few sales here, because as you can see, 2 of the sales have a strike through right? Which means that these were best offers. It did not go for that price. It went for another price, but we don't know what it is if you just look here at Go Collect. So I actually went to eBay. I went to eBay and I used Terapeak to figure out what these books actually sold for, because I want to see whether this blip of $850 is an accurate thing. So this last book here that sold on February 13th, offered up for $825. This book actually sold for $800, which is not bad at all. The sale before that, we can see $850. There was another sale here in early February where the book was offered up for $900, again, as a best offer. This book actually sold for $690 based upon my research. And so if you do the average of these last three sales, the average price is actually $780. So this, again, this data is a little incomplete because of these best offers not being represented here in the 30-day. So again, even though at glance it looked like there was a blip, potentially there is not a blip when you actually get the real data. Again, the most recent average price is $780, not $850. So again, that's one of the great things about having access to some of the data, is that you have the ability to drill in and actually look at some of this. But again, as you go down the list, you can see that values generally are declining from the 1 year to the 90-day to the 30-day. This is a fantastic book that was released in 1968. I actually own a couple of copies of this raw and one graded. Great book. And if you have been priced out of this book, this could potentially be a good time to snag this book now. So I want to look at an additional book here. A lot of people will say, hey, you only look at expensive books. That's what they say. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I decided to look at this book because about maybe about less than a year ago, this book was extremely hot. Darth Vader, issue number 1. This book was extremely hot. Book was released in 2015. This is the first ongoing Darth Vader solo series. It is also the first appearance of the Black Chrysanthemum. I think that's how you say that. And I think that is what drove up the value of this one, when the Black Chrysanthemum appeared in the Book of Boba Fett TV show. That this one took off like crazy. I think there's also another cameo appearance in here. But again, for me, with a modern book, the sweet spot is the 9.8. So we can see here that there are roughly 777, not roughly, actually 777 copies of this book on the census that have a grade of a 9.8. You can see its fair market value is $100. And you can see here the value has ticked down from $135 to $88 and then back up to $95. But as we drill into this one, you can see what's happening. I do enjoy the graphs. I enjoy the graphs here because it paints a wonderful visual picture of maybe where this book was at $322 in February of 2022 to where it is now a year later at $98. Again, if you can resist the FOMO and hold your water, keep your powder dry, you have the potential to pick up some really cool books. And if you are a Darth Vader fan, a Black Chrysanthemum fan, this is a great book to pick up now at this price. $98 on average is not a bad price at all. Who knows whether Black Chrysanthemum is going to show up elsewhere? We don't know that. But again, if you are a fan of this character, this could be a great time to snag this book now. All right. The other thing I will say to you as we get ready to go to the next book here is that I may highlight certain grades in certain books in the video. But again, I think that some of what I talk about, some of the methodology, some of the way that I'm looking at and using the data, I think is applicable to other situations in other books. So I would say, if I'm highlighting a book, maybe the grade that I'm highlighting isn't one that you want to go after. But if you look down the list, there could be a grade that is in your price range. And if you are a fan of that book, again, look at that grade. That could be a great book for you to pick up, despite the grade that I highlight in the video. So speaking of really cool books, I think that this is a cool book and also a cool character. This is Marvel Spotlight issue number 5, the first appearance of Ghost Rider, first appearance of Johnny Blaze. Again, just a really awesome book. I do not own this one, but It's a good one. There's no doubt about that. This book came out in 1972. So let's go ahead and let me zoom in on this one a little bit. And we're going to take a look at a couple of grades of this one, CGC blue labels. We're going to look at a couple of blue labels first. We're going to look at the 8.5. There are 357 copies of this book on the census. You can see what the FMV is, around $3,600. You can see the 1 year average for this book was roughly 4750, dropped down to 3740, and then now sits at around $3,300 at the 30-day average. And so when we drill in on this one again, graphically, you can see how this is actually playing out. This book had a massive run up in June of 21 to around $6,500. And it stayed pretty high for a little while there and has dropped off again to around 34.72. 34.72 is the average price that has been paid for this book in, nope, 33.85. Sorry about that. 33.85 is the February average price for this book. Again, if you're a fan of Ghost Rider, if you believe that there is potential for this character to eventually make his way into the MCU, if you've been priced out of this book and it's a book that you just want to add to your collection, now is not a bad time to pick it up. I mean, look at this. Somebody was trying to sell this book for $5,300 back in December of last year. And I wonder how much that one sold for. I may have to go take a look at that one. But again, 8.5, decent, respectable grade of this book, but maybe out of the price range for folks, right? I get that. So let's go ahead and look at a lower grade here. We're going to glance at the 5.5. Let's get that. There are 345 copies of this book on the census. That is way too big. And you can see roughly $1,400 is the 30-day average for the 5.5. So let's take a look at this one and see what's happening. And graphically, again, you can see that this book did have a run up, but appears to just be sputtering along. It appears to be sputtering along down here as of late, sitting February at $1,400. It reached a low of $1,320. 1235. Again, it's just kind of sputtering along here. And a lot of, and you may have to ask yourself the question here of, is there the potential for this book to go lower, or has this book hit its floor? Has this book reached the point at which there is that balance between the supply and the demand in this particular book, and it will not drop any further? The challenge, of course, is that we won't know that until we have data in the rear view that we can actually look at to see how this book is performing. But if you rewind to, what is that, March 21, this book was going for $1,250, and where are we now? 13. So again, not terrible versus where it had been historically if you go back a couple of years. So not a terrible book. And again, who knows whether this book will go lower or whether it's going to continue to sputter along with some ups and downs here. And I did not go to see what the final price for this one was. I probably should have done that. We'll see whether I can do that in the edit. Try to look at that. Let's look at one additional grade here. Let's look at the 3.0. There are 124 copies of the 3.0 out there. This book is going for $900, which is not that far off from the 5.5. But again, graphically, you can see how this book is performing. Again, $907 right there. In January is what it's going for. It was slightly higher than that in October, sorry. And as we back up to January 2022, this book was going for $1,500. $1,500 in January 2022. Fast forward 1 year, $970. And again, Ghost Rider is a great character. There is no doubt about that. But look at these last couple of sales in the 700s. I'm pretty sure that one didn't go for 600. So I'm going to just assume that it went somewhere in the 700s. That is not terrible. The last 30 days probably is being propped up by this one at $1,100, assuming that they factor that into that. But because otherwise that would be much lower. So I'm assuming they pulled in these last couple of sales right there. But again, a great book, a great grade. It's one that you may want to consider picking up if you are a fan of Ghost Rider. So there you have it. That is the 3 books that I've chosen to highlight for this video that I think are great books for people to consider. with that, we're going to wrap this up. If you need to reach out to me, feel free to do so on Instagram. And if you have not yet subscribed to the channel, I definitely want to encourage you to do that. Take care.